Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Legally Speaking with Rest the Case. And today we have with us Advocate Bhavya Kohli from Delhi, who is a renowned lawyer from Delhi with over 2 years of experience in a variety of cases like criminal law, business law, matrimonial disputes, litigation, and much more. Welcome to the show, Advocate Bhavya. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for getting me on this show. I hope all the viewers are also fine right now. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk about the topic legalizing weed or cannabis, like जिसको हम चरस और गांजा भी बोलते हैं. So today's topic of discussion is very debatable, and it has been in the debate for a very long time in our country because there are certain countries where weed is legalized but not yet in India. So first question that I would like to ask you, is it legal in India, or what parts of it is legal?
Okay, so the simple answer would be yes and no. Weed is not completely legalized in India, but it is legal only for medical and information purposes. The Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act of 1985 prohibits the use of marijuana in India. The production, manufacture, possession, sale, purchase, transport, warehousing, use, consumption, import, export, and transshipment of narcotic drugs and all other psychotropic substances are forbidden by this act except for medicinal and scientific purposes. And even when you are using it for medicinal and scientific purposes, you have to keep in consideration the ways and quantities which are very much specified in that particular act. The first international treaty to classify cannabis alongside hard narcotics was the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, which was signed in the year 1961 and prohibited the manufacturing and distribution of the drugs except for research and medical purposes. According to the Times of India, India was one of the countries which rejected the treaty's intolerance of the socio-cultural use of the organic substances throughout negotiations. But the bigger nations and more powerful nations like the United States and other Western nations outmatched all of them. The Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act of 1985 was passed in India, making it illegal to use cannabis leaves but not its fruit or flowers. But still, consuming different portion of that same cannabis plant can get you into a jail for 1 year minimum and up to a fine of rupees 10,000 or more. It essentially forbids anybody from producing, manufacturing, cultivating, possessing, storing, transporting, or any other kind of use of drugs or other psychotropic substances.
So now that you said what NDPS Act means, so if in simple words, if you try to understand, what does NDPS define cannabis as?
So NDPS defines cannabis in different manners. One of them is it defines cannabis as charas, whether it's in crude or purified form. Charas is a separated resin obtained from the cannabis plant and includes concentrated proportion of resin called liquid or hashish oil. Second definition is ganja, the flowering or fruiting top, which excludes the seeds and leaves which do not form part of the top. Any mixture of drink made out of charas or ganja is also included in the definition of cannabis as per the NDPS Act. All of these definitions in the NDPS Act exclude the term bhang, which is very commonly used in India from the definition of cannabis in India.
So that's not included in the Act.
No, that is not included.
So what are the different laws that regulate these apart from the NDPS Act, or does everything come under this Act?
Okay, so in India, the main piece of legislation which controls and regulates the entire market, or I should not say market because it's not a legal market, the entire structure of sale and distribution of narcotic drugs is the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act which was made up in 1985. It has some salient points which define how this marijuana is to be controlled in India. First one is legal possession and use. This statute prohibits the use, possession and intoxication of marijuana. Second point, sale and production of marijuana. This statute clearly forbids the sale, purchase, transportation and production of marijuana. This topic covers the entire plant as well as its resin. The third point is penalties. The statute stipulates harsh punishments such as jail times and fines for marijuana related offenses. The amount of the material used determines how harsh the punishment is going to be. The fourth point is the medical and scientific uses. This legislation permits the subject to certain restrictions. Let me define it in a very clear, in a simpler manner. This statute says that you cannot use, purchase, buy, or anything or marijuana in any manner. But it also gives a point in which marijuana is going to be used for scientific and medical purposes, but there are some restrictions upon it which needs to be taken into account. Otherwise, it will also be considered as an offense only.
So now that we are discussing about the medicinal purposes, the marijuana which is used, so how can you tell us more about how it is like how the people who are actually growing this for medicinal purposes, like what are the legal procedures they have to go through, or like what is the process?
Okay. So the central government has informed the Delhi High Court that although cannabis usage is legally permitted for medical and scientific purposes, it is not entirely prohibited in the nation. The NDPS Act forbids the manufacturing and sale of the cannabis resin and flowers, but it also allows the states to regulate and create state laws about the usage of cannabis plant leaves and seeds. Though anyone found in possession of any of these cannabis plant parts could face arrest. It is not a very simple thing that if you can say that I have been producing this for medicinal purposes, so I am out of the law. You have to clearly demarcate it.
Right. So if someone is caught with marijuana, and of course it's illegal, so what amount is like considered a crime, or like how much does the jail time and the fines range in this case?
Okay. So in India, marijuana related offenses are governed by the NDPS Act that I have been stating for a very long time now. Under this statute, the type of offense and the amount of the substance involved determine how serious the sentence is going to be for a marijuana related offense. Here are a few different categories in which these offenses are going to be punished. The first one would be minimal amounts for individual use. Small amounts meant for personal use may result in a minimum sentence of rigorous imprisonment for 1 year and a fine of ₹10,000 or both of them. Second would be intermediate quantities. If the amounts surpass the barrier for small quantities but do not meet the criteria for commercial quantities, the penalty could be as harsh as 10 years in prison along with a fine of ₹1 lakh. The third and the most crucial one is going to be quantities for commercial use. Offenses involving large amounts of marijuana for commercial purposes is going to result in very harsh penalties such as imprisonment up to 20 years along with a fine of ₹2 lakhs. So now the question is for the fourth kind of people, the regular offenders. As per court's discretion, if an individual is found to be an offender regularly, then they can punish them for 30 years. Moreover, the death sentence comes into question if the individual is found to be a part of a large quantity of drug trafficking in India or abroad.
So now this has been a conversation that I think on and off it finds its focus that should it be made legal in India. So what do you think about it? Should it be made legal or should it be regulated?
That's a very right question to be asked because I have been asked this question on a professional basis and also on personal basis from many people. The NDPS Act in India prohibits the recreational use of weed in India as on date. Global views on cannabis, however, are changing and certain nations and areas have been reevaluating their laws pertaining to the drugs, including taking steps forward to legalizing the use of marijuana or decriminalizing it. As we can see in many states of USA, the use of marijuana or weed has been legalized and it's not an offense anymore. Cannabis law revisions may be influenced by public opinion, cultural attitude and international trends. As we can see in general opinion in USA, the people are more influenced by their own thoughts and there the people don't consider using cannabis as a crime. So there the charges are changing, the position is changing. In India, there have been talks and debates in recent years about decriminalizing or legalizing weed for specific uses, for example, medical use. And till date, there are no talks which say that this will be legalized. The probability of whether India will make weed legal or not is something quite unexpected and cannot be based on that. Since medical use is going on for weed, and considering the amount of petitions and researchers who are devoting their time to persisting that weed should be legal in India, there can be chances of weed becoming legal. But on the other hand side, there are a lot of cons too. Since the debate has been going on for a while now, there are no chances or any move that is being initiated by the government in favor of legalizing the consumption of weed or marijuana in India. So in the near time, there are quite a few chances of legalizing of weed, but in the long term, along with the global acceptance, the situation might change and we might see use and consumption of weed becoming legal for recreational purposes also.
So, in your opinion, what do you think? What should be the should it be made legal or should it be just how the way it is?
See, as per me, a lot of the laws in India are very archaic. They need to be changed with the change in the structure of the society. But NDPS Act is not a very archaic law. It has been regulated and it has been changed quite a many a times by the government as per the needs of the society. Right now, the world is of the opinion that marijuana is not a hard narcotic substance, so it should be legalized. But it comes with a lot of stuff that needs to be done by the government along with just no, and it does not even require only decriminalizing the consumption of it. There's a need to create many forums on which there is information is being spread to the people. And it is not a very easy task for the government to do it on a very small scale. It has to be done on a very large scale, and only then we can even consider legalizing weed.
Yeah, I think one of the major factors that also comes into picture if you compare US and other countries and India is its vast population that has to be made aware about what is weed and why it should be legalized. And if it's legalized, then as you said, it will definitely require a lot of awareness about what is actual uses. Otherwise, it can we know how much illegally this thing is going on. One of the most popular films, Udta Punjab, which was a very good example.
It is a very big example of how unverified use of weed is going to cause a lot of trouble in India.
Yeah, so that I think that movie really opens our eyes about how it is in India, and I don't think legalizing it would change the mindset just like that. It'll take a lot of time to build that perspective and bring in that awareness. So as we discussed about the different laws, so are these laws nationally, how do states regulate it on the state level when it comes to checking what are the illegal sources and capturing them? Can you shed some light about that?
Okay, so NDPS Act is a central act. It has been enacted by the central government and it gives broad guidelines of how the governments have to treat these offenses. But there is also some scope of states getting into the main hand and driving how these things are working. So every state has some discretion of what production they are going to allow for medicinal purposes. Right now we are talking just about marijuana, but it is a very known fact that there are so many psychotropic substances which are used for medicinal purposes and they are grown in India also. Though they are under protection by the government protects everything. They protect the licenses which they give out to people. Everything is very much controlled, but it is there. And we cannot just stop those production because they might be used for some recreational purposes, because these psychotropic substances form a big chunk of our medicinal. They help us in production of medicines. So, though the state governments play a very crucial role into helping the farmers to produce them and also the law-abiding people to not use them. They form policies. The police and other authorities put up a very important role into controlling the production and sale of these substances, and that is how the sale, manufacture, and everything of those psychotropic substances are managed in the entire country.
Yeah, that's true. So I think this was a very insightful conversation with you related to legalization of weed in India and what is the current scenario. And I hope you also had a great time talking with
I had
us
a great
in
time
this
talking to
podcast.
you. Thank you very much. I had
So
a really
yeah, we also had a very good time. So thank you so much everyone for watching this podcast, and we hope that we'll see Advocate Bhavya in the coming podcasts very soon. Until then, stay tuned, and yeah, thank you so much.